All right, what do you make of that flight to safety in gold? Bond yields moving to the downside. It seems like a lot of anxieties in the markets.
Certainly is. It's going beyond the tariff discussion at this point. It's actually people now focusing on what the results might be of those high tariffs. I think you're seeing the trade moving toward the sort of protection, from potential clouds on the horizon with the economy.
You see potential for a rally once we know what they are, at least when we know what they are for now.
I'd like to believe it. I mean, a lot of people are calling this a clearing event, but from my perspective, this is just sort of like a rest stop on a bumpy highway. So I think there's going to be more unknowns that are going to come at it today.
In all fairness, we were talking about it earlier. One big bank said it was not a clearing event. I want to get to your word of the day. You say it's a word I haven't heard before. You hit us with your word of the day.
Yeah, autarky. So autarky is kind of like a fancy economic word for eating our own dog food. And essentially, that's what, the beautiful patriotic goal of bringing everything on shore and removing, all of the trade deficits. It's a lot about, obviously, on today, what we're going to be talking about. But the challenge with it is that it's very hard to maintain in the long run, especially in a capitalist society. So, North Korea is an autarky, right? So they can force their companies to do certain things and their citizens to do certain things. But in a capitalist society where profits are king, it's very hard to maintain that.
Yeah, the U.S. clearly very different. Let's get to your pick of the day.
Yeah.
Where would you put money to work in right now with all this uncertainty and potential volatility?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like, an exciting pick, but I like Microsoft at this point in terms of growth, right? If you're still looking to capture that growth that we can get in AI, we do believe that it's still early days in the AI trade. Microsoft sort of answers a lot of the questions that we have today in terms of the trade environment. It's a software and services company. It's a little bit more nimble in terms of moving its production around versus some other companies which are more tied to foreign trade. It's also a company that is semi-resilient in a time of tough economics, as we're expecting going forward.
To your point, also limited exposure to China as well, so not as sensitive to China, but very sensitive to growth. Aren't you concerned about the fact that growth is slowing down, maybe even significantly? Some people are calling for a recession. This is a company that's tied directly to growth and also the willingness of companies to make some pretty CapEx investments, or at least spending investments to move workloads to the clouds, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, so, Microsoft, while we are relying heavily on growth, I think their growth forecasts are relatively tame compared to some of the more more aggressive growth paths that we're expecting for companies like NVIDIA, et cetera. So, calling for a 10% growth over the next couple of quarters, year over year, is fairly solid and fairly conservative. We feel that also Microsoft has, pretty strong pricing power, so we're able to, sort of weather some of those things. And as we've seen recently, Microsoft has really, really solid management, and they're adjusting based on those growth prospects that we're talking about.